has started to function, and I'm speaking in the name of the platform and the organizations that now form the platform. I'd also like to thank especially CAF, because I think it's really a leadership move for a financial institution of the stature of the CAF to prioritize innovation. And we hope that it's a signal not only to organizations that are already working in development, but to their peers to mobilize around innovation and scale up impact, which is what this is all about. So thank you. I'm not going to repeat what Alfredo already mentioned, but I think this is sort of a summation of where we start from, which is that we have to do something different, basically. We have problems on a huge scale, which are not being addressed at the rate that they need to be addressed. And we're spending 2.5 billion, 3 billion, 1 billion a day on development. So there is a disconnect. And we can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So Avina has years ago realized that we couldn't work alone if we wanted to scale up impact. And we had to collaborate with other organizations. And now I think that our realization, along with our partners in the Platform for Innovation with Purpose, is that not only can we not work alone, but we have to be constantly looking for ways to involve innovation and business leadership into what we're doing in order to scale up the results that we're looking for. This slide basically shows that we're doing really good as far as advancing technology. We see, the iPhone has 120 times the computing power that we had in 1969 to put somebody on the moon. We have businesses like Uber, Airbnb, Kiva that reach capitalization of 1 billion or reach 1 billion users in a question of years, 4 or 5 years. How can we harness that kind of speed and acceleration for the biggest challenges that we have as human beings? That's also part of the disconnect that this platform is trying to face. This is the model that Avina has used and still uses, which is we feel like is a social innovation. This is a method for getting groups to collaborate and build coalitions, and that's how we've created impact over the past years. We would like to apply the whole collaboration idea to this platform, which is basically getting not only these organizations, but a lot of other organizations to commit to finding social innovations, business innovations, and technological innovations that can create impact at a much higher rate than we're seeing right now. We want institutions that are not content with the level of impact that they're having right now and are willing to try something different. The platform is open. It's open invitation. We're kicking it off today, but we hope that other organizations will join shortly, and we're in negotiation with different organizations. It's completely collaborative. What unites us is a vision for prioritizing the toughest problems that we have and using our best resources, including technology and business models, to fight those problems. We're measuring this. We want to accelerate impact. We want to demonstrate a model that shows that this really works and this is the way to go, because we know that in that way we will mobilize a lot of other groups. It's an ethical focus. We use the Sustainable Development Goals. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We use the Social Progress Index measurements, the Sustainable Development Goals. We want to be able to show with the measures that people are using in the world right now that this approach to development works. It's a global reach. We're starting in Latin America, but we do not think this will be contained to Latin America. We think it's going to go beyond. In the end of the day, we have to affect real people. We're talking about local impact. We're talking about people that have access to water, children that are not dying of dysentery. We're talking about real impact for real people. And this basic idea that I think Alfredo puts really well, which is innovation should be shared. We're tired of this whole trickle-down innovation idea that the richest countries in the world get to advance fastest, and maybe 10, 20 years later, some of that technology trickles down to everybody else. So how can we bring the best ideas, the best innovation, the best business models to get to scale to the people that need it the most? These are the areas that we're going to be working in to start with. This is not the limited. We hope to get into more areas, but this is where we're already applying this model. In inclusive recycling, where we're working in 14 different countries to change the laws to include urban recyclers in the value chain of recycling and cooperatives. Climate change, which is basically participating in the discussions at the highest levels, but also helping countries to implement their plans to reduce emissions and to adapt at the local level. Sustainable cities, participation of citizens in decision-making at the local level, and also fighting the endemic lack of equality that we see in all of the cities of the region. Political innovation. We know that we've got some serious political challenges, and I'm not just talking about Latin America. We know that we've got corruption. We know that we have governments that aren't responsive to the people. We know that sometimes public policy goes against the best interests of the poorest and against the environment. So we have to be involved also in political innovation, technology for social change, using apps, using the modern technology to allow citizens to participate in decision making, allow citizens to pressure government in a positive way using the latest technology. Focusing on specific regions that have been underserved, like the South American Chaco, which is probably a biome that many of you have not heard of. It's the second biggest biome in South America. It has a higher rate of deforestation than the Amazon. It has more poverty than you find in the countries of that region. And if we can make innovation and business innovation help these kinds of problems in the most forgotten parts of the region, then we will know that we have success. Access to water, which is Celeste's already mentioned, but basically we work with community water management districts, over 100,000 in Latin America, that provide over 80 million people with water. These are small communities that basically have a well, they have a river, and they have to organize to provide water because the government doesn't provide water. Private providers don't provide water. And so they have to organize themselves. They don't have access to capital, they don't have access to best practices, they don't have access to training. So just by taking those 80 million people in their water management districts and giving them access to scale, to innovation, to technology, you're already improving the lives and the access for millions of people. In migration, this is going to be a big topic, and it's going to be a big topic here as well. We're talking about human rights. We're talking about tracing human beings so that they're not forgotten on their way. We're talking about harmonizing policy so that somebody's human rights counts and is valued in Guatemala and Mexico and in the United States. So this is going to be a big area for us where we think that innovation can help. And the Social Progress Index, because measurement is very important to us, and the Social Progress Index is a way to balance the over-reliance on economic growth models to talk about whether you are advancing or not. You can be advancing economically and not be advancing in terms of social progress. And this is going to be very important, I think, also for the United States in the next few years. So those are the areas that we're working in, that we want to see impact in, that we're going to be measuring in terms of scale. And these are some of the technologies that we're working with. This is a very small sample, We have a wide network, and we're bringing in more partners. But as Alfredo mentioned, the water plasma filtration system is something that's already being implemented. But we're also working with different kind of applications. As I mentioned before, we're working with technologies that already exist but aren't very well distributed, like fog collection of water in the Andes, for example, or higher regions. We're even working with superconducting magnets, which would be a revolution, for example, for the spread of wind energy in Latin America and other parts of the world, with making it a lot more efficient. So the possibilities in terms of technology are limitless. What we need to do is get out the word that we want inventors and technologies that are interested in serving this market, the market that is being forgotten in the race towards more profits, the market that actually needs these innovations the most. And also, I think there's business models that we need to learn from. I mentioned Uber and I mentioned Kiva, but also we're working with the B Corporation movement, which are businesses that from the start make them organize themselves in order to serve a public good. We're working with ethical banking, which is going to be very important as we try to reach different populations with financial services. Impact investment funds that are part of this network, that invest in businesses also that are generating social impact. And we have examples of a company like Rotoplas, is a Mexican company that actually invested in the Advanced Innovation Center of Alfredo Solesi, a Mexican company that said, when they saw what Alfredo was doing with the water filtration system, we want to be a part of that. That's the business model that we want. We want our company to be known for not only innovation, but innovation that actually helps people. So we think that there's a lot of potential there, and it'll only grow. I'm going to mention really quickly 2 examples of how this actually works in practice. First of all, with water, as we know, we've mentioned that there's a lot of people that don't have access to water resources. So how does it work? We bring together these different types of innovation. I mentioned that we work with different water management districts in Latin America that affect 80 million Latin Americans. That's where they get their water from. So that provides a great market. If you're a business or you've got a technology for water filtration, it could be PWSS, the plasma system, but maybe not. Maybe it's another one that's more adequate or appropriate for that type of community. So we've got different solutions that companies have actually been contributing to this group of providers in Latin America. We've got 20,000 of these community groups organized so that they can actually receive training, best practices, and different solutions from these companies. Because of the organization, we've been able to organize and change laws that provide more security for these organizations in their own countries. And in the last few years, this has meant that we've been able to reach with water resources 3.3 million people. So this is sort of what led us to think, hey, this is something that we should really bet on as far as the future of creating impact in what we're doing. And as Alfredo said, our goal is that with efficiency, with acceleration, the dollar that you invest tomorrow in something like access to water gives you the same return as the $5 you invested today. So you see that in business models, you see that on the internet, we want to see that in social change. Another example is the Chaco region that I mentioned. That's the second largest forest biome in South America, disappearing at a rate of 2,600 soccer fields per day. That's a Latin American comparison, obviously, but you can get the idea. And that's also the poorest, it's a shared biome. It's in Argentina, Paraguay, and Bolivia. And it's basically the poorest part of all 3 of those countries. So we're talking about an area that's really not being served by technology business or even government services. So you get to this kind of region, you say, well, what can we do organizing our partners and using this idea of technological business and social innovation to make a difference for these people? And luckily we were able to work with a broad network of local organizations. And also companies like Samsung, who actually financed a program where over 13,000 indigenous and rural residents are going to have access to the internet. Actually have access to the internet, I think. It's present tense. Also using different water technologies in this region. This type of place is actually where we see climate change happening and affecting people first. This is a dry forest, so the changes in temperature, the changes in rainfall affect these people the most. So who's going to get to these people and tell them how their climate's going to look in 20 years and how they need to change their crops? Nobody. No? So part of innovation is actually working with the small farmers and their cooperatives so that they have access to the information that a big farmer has. They know what they have to what crops they have to change. No? The little guys don't know. They're being set up. So part of innovation is also information and making sure that those farmers have access to the same information as the big guys. And also we've been working with satellite mapping because it's a big region and there's a lot of deforestation. So we've been working with using satellite technology, linking that to local NGOs so they can, and the government, so they can actually monitor a huge region and reduce deforestation in that way. It's another way to connect technology. We've seen some results. We hope to see a lot more with the platform functioning. But we've seen people leave poverty. We keep track of this. This is the kind of measurement that we want to see. We've seen more and more land that's become put under sustainable management because of these climate change adaptation plans, and also reforestation that's starting to take place. As I keep mentioning, measurement is very important to us. We're a bit obsessed with the idea. And we will be using the Sustainable Development Goals because it's a common language everybody understands. It's a yardstick that everybody uses. This is an example of the kind of results we get from the Social Progress Index, which is very interesting in terms of pinpointing exactly where a country or community needs to improve. And we hope to be able to work with decision makers to say, okay, you need to improve in education, you need to improve in access to water. These are the programs that we have, these are the technologies we have. And in that way, sort of pinpoint the problems that the different groups have. And then also, we're launching a real-time system where you can actually keep track of the impact of this platform online or even on your cell phone. On a map, you can actually see how many people have been benefited, in what way. This is a new way to actually make it a lot more interactive and help the people that are a part of this actually see the impact that they're creating by their participation. So, why have we joined together to do this? We're interested in scale, we're interested in effectiveness, we are not content with what we've done up till now. We want to expand our social capital, we want to invite and work with different groups. We want innovation and more flexibility. We want to make sure what we're doing is actually relevant to real people on the ground. We're open to new programs, we're open to working with different groups. We want to see a greater return on our investment as a foundation, not speaking as a foundation, but I think everybody in the platform is interested in more returns for their investment and development, things that they can actually measure. We want to see results in the short term, we want to be able to trace those results, and we want to be able to attract new partners. These are the organizations that are kicking this off, the founding organizations, but we plan to show this slide with a lot of other organizations very shortly. But these are the innovative leaders that are starting this movement. And participants, we see all the groups we work with, from the recycling cooperatives to the water management districts, All of those are members of this platform because they're all benefiting and contributing to the platform and creating results together. Anybody basically that wants to use innovation to scale their results is invited to become part of the platform. And I think that's all. So thank you very much.